Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Long Live Rock and Roll podcast. Following the modest reception of his debut album, Elton John and lyricist Bernie Taupin took a bold step forward with Elton's self-titled second album. Crafted with sweeping orchestral arrangements, polished production and deeply personal songwriting, 1970s Elton John introduced the world to a sound that would define an artist. With the breakthrough success of Your Song and a collection of hauntingly beautiful tracks, this album transformed Elton from a struggling songwriter into a global superstar. What began as an intimate, piano-led project became the foundation for one of rock music's most enduring and successful careers. Joining me to discuss this album is my co-host, Mr. Felipe Amorim. How you doing, bro?
Doing great, all good here by the Thames. Beautiful day despite the cold weather.
Yeah, it's a bit chilly at the moment, isn't it? I was saying yesterday to my trainer, I was like, I'm just annoyed now because I don't mind it being cold, but just stick to it. Be cold for a month fully, because we get a week of nice weather and sunshine, and then suddenly it's cold for 2 weeks again. It's like I don't mind, but just make up your mind. I suppose that's the beauty of British weather, isn't it? It's always unpredictable. Anyway, Elton John's Elton John. I chose this album because I felt like Elton John is such a name in rock music, in pop music, that I thought it's almost 100 episodes now. We haven't done anything about Elton John. He's quite a figure and a character. So I looked through and I kind of said, what are Elton John's most famous albums? And this one, which is his second one. So I'll just run through a few album details quickly, as per usual. So the album was released on the 10th of April 1970 and recorded in January of 1970 at the Trident Studio in London. The genre is soft rock. We can talk about that a little later. The album comes in at just under 39.5 minutes. It was released on the Uni and DJM label, and the producer was Gus Dudgeon. So a little bit of background about Elton John at this time. And what I found quite interesting was this little duo he had with a lyricist called Bernie Taupin, isn't it? So him and Bernie Taupin were writing songs for other artists. Elton John was 23 years old, still really kind of unknown, but him and Bernie were writing songs together. Elton was also doing a little session work and essentially writing songs to order, which I find quite funny because we're going to talk about classical music in a bit. And something that opened my eyes about classical composers like Beethoven and Mozart is that they weren't these prima donna artists who were like, I'm going to spend a month writing a symphony. They were paid. They were commissioned by people to write classical music for dances, for events, for great dinners and royalty and this and that and the other. This was their job. And so I just found it funny when I read that thing saying Elton John wrote songs to order for other people.
Yeah, it was. He was like I'd like to call that like a proper musician. Like what I mean by that is like you have a lot of people in the business who are artists, right?
Yep.
So they get a lot of recognition for being like this big personality and writing songs that everyone can relate to, and they can sing really well, all that stuff. But some of those guys never had a music career before becoming artists. There's a huge difference between musicians and artists. You can be a musician and an artist at the same time, but they are two different things. And the thing with Elton John is he started as a session guy, recording piano and keyboards for other guys and writing songs for the label. So there's a lot of artists out there who can't write their own songs, so they hire songwriters. So I don't know which record label he was working for, but Bernie was put in touch with him by the label. It wasn't like a friendship they started in a bar and let's write songs together. It was a professional relationship from the beginning. Yeah. Obviously, they became good friends, but the thing is, the label put them together. Said, look, this guy's got some lyrics. This guy's got some sick melodies. You guys are going to work together so our artists have some, songs to record.
Yeah.
And then I think Elton was more ambitious than that. He wanted to do his own stuff.
But he seemed like he wanted to bring Bernie along with him, didn't he?
Yeah, and it's like going back a little bit in his, early music career or even before it became a career, he started teaching himself how to play the piano at the age of 4. It's insane. He was into he was learning on his own. And then when he was, I think it was 11 or something, he passed this program, the youth program at the a scholarship program for the Royal Academy in London. So here's the interesting thing. He went to study classical music but he was into Elvis and like rock and roll. So his first band was a blues band. So he got this like, that's why I call him a proper musician, classical background, blues background, and rock and roll. He put it all together. So his piano skills are amazing. He could have been one of the best session musicians in the world. He could be playing for any famous artist out there, but he didn't want that. He wanted to be the artist himself.
We'll discuss his piano and his songwriting later. Just to finish off a bit of the background stuff. So the album that he released before in 1969 was called Empty Sky, and it was fine. You know, people liked it. People said it was promising, but it didn't really make a splash, or didn't sort of have an impact so much. And I read a bit that during and after the album, behind the scenes, they were writing these formulaic songs, but they both decided to move away from the commercial aspect of songwriting that they were doing and into something far more personal, and reflective and introspective. And we're going to touch on that in a second. I'll just give a quick bit of musical context in terms of the history of what was going on at that time. 1970, so you have the rise of the singer-songwriter. We saw Bob Dylan at the end of the 60s.
I'm kind of scared of those words, singer-songwriter.
I know, yeah. you have Bob Dylan, mid-60s, with his folk background, really rising. Which one did we did? We did Freewheeling Bob Dylan, which is one of the first albums Bob Dylan did, where he stopped covering traditional folk songs, other popular songs at the time, started writing his own songs, and again making them personal to himself. And we get the rise of singer-songwriters like James Taylor, Carole King, Cat Stevens, and this shifted this genre of singer-songwriter more towards an authenticity, a rawness, a songwriter, just a man and his guitar, a woman and her piano, sitting there wearing their heart on their sleeve, singing stripped back music. Because if you think where pop music went at the end of the 60s, you got the Beatles, and think about the Beach Boys as well. Think about those two albums, Pet Sounds and Sgt. Pepper, where there's just
are band efforts, right? In a way,
band efforts, but a litany of orchestras, progressive aspects, unusual songwriting, plethoras of sounds and production stuff and techniques. And so we saw just how far people could push rock music as we pushed towards the end of the 60s. And then we kind of took it back a bit with people like these artists, these singer-songwriters, just sort of saying, Beatles are great, but I just want me and my guitar. And on the rock side of things, as I mentioned with the Beatles and David Bowie, rock was evolving and becoming a bit more audacious, a bit more pushing boundaries, especially the likes of Beach Boys, Beatles, David Bowie. You've got the rise of hard rock with Zeppelin and Deep Purple doing their thing. So that's where it was sort of towards the end of the 60s that the rock side, the Beatles and the Beach Boys, pushed away from the likes of James Taylor, Carole King, Elton John, in terms of where pop music or pop rock was going. But yeah. Anyway, we got 4 things we want to talk about. We want to talk about the music, we want to talk about the lyrics and the themes, and we want to talk about the legacy and the impact. Should we go for music first?
Yes.
Yeah, excellent. Let's talk first about the orchestra and the classical influence on the album, because it's really interesting here. You have this whole way through, almost like, oh God, I've forgotten his name. Who was the guy for the Beatles? George
Martin.
So what George Martin did for the Beatles, we have a gentleman called Paul Buckmaster who did this for this album, and his arranging is just phenomenal, isn't it?
Yeah. Do you know how they got in touch with him? Because that's an interesting story. I just want to get it right.
I don't know.
Checking my notes, I don't get it wrong. The thing is, the previous album was produced by a guy called Steve Brown. Steve was friends with Elton and loved his music. It was a guy pushing for him to get more recognition inside the label, so, but he knew that the following album had to be bigger and better. So he said, we need a good strings arranger, good like orchestral arranger. And at the time, what's his name? Paul Buckmaster was working with David Bowie, and he did Space Oddity.
Yes.
And they peaked at number 5, right? The following day after that album peaked at number 5, Steve Brown and Elton John met Paul at a Miles Davis concert at Ronnie Scott.
Whoa.
So they were there in Soho hanging out, and they say, look, I want you to work on this album, right? I have this song, your song, Elton's recording this song. I want you to arrange the song. And then it was meant to be like just this one song, see how it goes. But he loved the song. I said, what's going to be the B-side? And they started showing him the other stuff. And they were like, oh my God, this is all great. I want to do the whole album. I want to write the orchestra for the whole album. And then Steve Brown was like, do you know what? I can't be in charge of a 50-piece orchestra and a band. I'm not that kind of producer. I don't have the knowledge for that. Who would you recommend? So he stepped aside. So look, like Elton's going to do something bigger now. I can't be the producer. Wow. So then he asked Paul Buckmaster who he wanted to be the producer. So, and he brought, what's his name? Gus Dudgeon, who produced about 6 or 7 consecutive #1 albums for Elton John. So that night at Ronnie Scott's was like a game changer for Elton John.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't planned, but that meeting they had on that night changed Elton John's career.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a really cool story.
Yeah.
And do you know what? It's these sort of unsung heroes, like Steve Brown, who say, this is too big for me. This is too big for me and I'm uncomfortable. You might have people who, for their own careers and for their own sake, sort of say, yeah, no, go on, I'll try it. Yeah. And the album might have flopped because of that. But for that man to sort of step back and be like, do you know what? Get someone else. That's proper.
New arranger, new producer. That's everything is going to be different now.
Make yourself what they call it. What's it? The not the hero that Gotham wants, but the hero that Gotham needs. Just
having a Batman quote here. That's great.
So yeah, the string arrangements were by Paul Buckmaster, and Gus Dudgeon did a fantastic job producing this orchestral sound that is just throughout the whole album. The symphonic depth that is in this is masterful. And when I listened to it for the first time, you can only compare it to the work done by George Martin. Well, you know what I mean? Obviously, there's loads of classical composers you can compare it to, but it was rare.
In pop music.
It was rare in pop music. You had the Beatles doing it. You have songs like Eleanor Rigby that was, A Day in the Life that was so predominantly orchestral. But the Beatles had almost been working up towards that. You heard through each album how they went from here up to here and how their sound evolved. This is Elton John's second album, and to have such a cinematic depth of quality in the orchestra to accompany his second album is quite nuts, I thought. 60 years on and The Greatest Discovery, very emphatic, cinematic. Well, both of them,
imagetic, isn't he? You can see the boy walking around the house, he's searching for what's this noise. That is a really, really good arrangement.
It's a beautiful
all
one.
Of it. Yeah.
And half the time the arrangement complements the lyrics so well, but we'll get into the lyrics a little later. One that I thought, I Need You to Turn To, very classical sounding. It's kind of got that Baroque piano, which is called a harpsichord, as the main sound. It reminded me of a song by Cat Stevens called Sad Lisa, which also has the same thing. Just a quick note for listeners and viewers, in the show notes and the description below, you're going to find a link to a playlist. Now in this playlist, we have all the songs off the album we're talking about, and then any other songs we mention. So that if we mention a song that you're not familiar with, you can go to the playlist, click on it, and have a listen alongside us whilst we're talking about it. So go and find that in your show notes and the description. There was one song I thought that was, it was which one was it? It was, I don't remember which one it was, but I remember thinking that if you were, do you know what? It was 60 Years On. I remember thinking, because there's that lovely bit in the middle where the strings just go off for a bit, don't they, on their own?
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, if you changed Elton John's voice and you removed his poppy soul-y voice and you put in an opera singer, that would be a classical piece of music, and no one could say anything otherwise.
I think what was quite interesting about this is like they want to do a breakthrough album, but you're taking too much risk there, isn't it?
It's a lot of risk. Making
it like too classical for a pop audience, I guess.
Yeah.
And it's just, I think the songs are so good and the arrangements are so good. Like the overall quality is unmatched. I think if it wasn't, I don't know, it's really difficult to do something too clever for the radio,
Yeah.
which I think it was. It was way too clever for pop music.
Well, and the thing is I don't know how to describe a song like 60 Years On except classical.
Yeah,
And the only thing that's not classical about it, which is why no one does call it classical, is the main voice.
yeah,
It's brilliant.
yeah.
Brilliant.
And Elton gave them total freedom. You know, like in every time we're talking about rock bands, there's always a conflict with the producer. We want to do it like this, and the producer, oh, I work for the label. We need to do it like this,
Yeah.
and there's that kind of stuff. What Elton did was like, here are the songs, right? And they actually had a lot of planning. They had 5 meetings a week to decide what
Wow.
to. And he said there were notes about everything. The drums start here, stop here, and then the violin comes or whatever. So they were like working in detail on everything. But he said he gave them total freedom. It's like, I know you guys are good. Do your thing.
Yeah.
So here are the songs. I'm going to play the piano. I'm going to sing. But in regards to arrangements and production, you guys can do whatever you want. I think they had a good budget. They got a lot of musicians involved, and yeah, I think I like the fact that he knew that he didn't have to say a word, regarding the production. No, that's why you hire professionals, isn't it? You're the professional. You're the specialist. Do your job.
Yeah.
And I think he did well to not interfere too much with that.
Agreed. Moving on from classical music into the other genres that we explore in the album, I thought this was really good and it was really interesting because just a bit of context for me and Elton John. I can't say I'm a fan. What I hear, I think, my God, that's a well-written song, but it's never music I would put on. Cat Stevens, however, is one of my top 5 artists. Maybe it's a voice thing. I know for a fact one thing I don't enjoy about it is the amount of piano. I feel that the amount of piano in Elton John's songs, I feel the piano is such a broad instrument that you can tell so much of a musical story just from a piano because of you've got all these fingers to play these notes, and so all of the fingers can do something, and so you're getting melody up top, the rhythm in the bottom, you're getting the chord in the middle. I feel like from what I've heard, it's almost like there's too much piano, but that's just me. But this is not me saying I don't like Elton John. It's that I'd never listened to it. But when I listened to this album, you don't half sit there and think, my God, this guy can write a song. And just to go back to the classical stuff, actually, you said about his classical music training, and
Yeah.
you can hear it. You can hear it in the chord changes. Songs like "The King Must Die,"
Yeah.
"Border Song," I think is another one where there's
Well, the
just
King
these.
Must Die is very theatrical, isn't it? It's like
Yeah,
it's Shakespeare
yeah.
is about,
All of these chord
about a play.
changes. He just throws in this little chord that you would not expect. It's kind of Beatles-esque, Beach
Yeah,
Boys-esque.
yeah,
The knowledge or the talent that this composer has in turning the piece and finding an unusual chord that sits perfectly. And but you have to give that credit to the piano, because if you're sitting writing on guitar, you've got your normal chords, you've got your G,
yeah,
your D, your A minor, your C. The piano allows you to have a whole plethora more of voicings
yeah.
and chords at your disposal. And since Elton John was such a fantastic piano player, he
Mm.
had that under his hands. Um, but I think,
And also being able to connect that classical knowledge to popular music. I think in a certain way, almost the opposite of classical music is blues. And
yeah.
he had, he was a blues player as well. So
Well,
that's very unusual.
I was just going to say the piano style was a mix of rock, gospel,
Yeah.
and classical elements all rolled into one. I mean, the way he blended these genres really did fit into that rock landscape, and I think it's a testament to how good a songwriter he is. That throughout this album, you hear this fusion of genres that match the Beatles, that match Beach Boys, but he's doing it with like far fewer instruments,
Yeah.
and only one of him. There's only one of him. I know Bernie was doing the lyrics, but there's only one composer in that sense.
Yeah.
So massive credit to him. You got songs like "Take Me to the Pilot," which is just complete out and out gospel that I
I
love.
love that.
"No Shoestrings on Louise," which was like country and bluesy. Then you have the classical ones that we mentioned, and then the interesting thing is "The King Must Die," and I thought two of those unreleased songs, "Bad Side of the Moon" and "Grey Seal," they're almost sort of Motowny
Yeah,
with
I
female
think
backing vocals, the gospel backing
Bad Side of the
vocals.
Moon is the grooviest one in the album. Well,
Yeah,
it's not in the original release.
yeah.
It's only 5 songs per side on the original release. I think that, I don't know if that was a B-side. It was released later on. If you buy the vinyl, you're not going to have that. But it's a great song. I don't know why it didn't make it to the
Well,
first cut of the album.
I did have a
And
theory.
it's I think it's just drums and vocals at the beginning. Super cool arrangement. Yeah.
I did have a theory that the whole album, and we're going to get to this when we touch on the lyrics and the themes, the whole album completely reflects this introspective, emotional, personal struggles, nostalgia, this kind of these themes running through it, themes that are not 100% happy, let's say.
Yeah.
The 3 extra tracks, I think they're all too upbeat to fit into the album.
Yeah, and
I
it
like
makes
them.
sense.
I
It
like
makes
them, and
sense.
there's
They
an
would,
argument that they're better songs than the songs on the album,
yeah,
but I don't think they fit in fully.
yeah. True, true. I get your point. And it's funny because I like Elton John's like up tempo stuff.
Yeah,
Saturday Night's All Right for Fighting, Crocodile Rock. I love those songs, like
yeah,
proper rock and roll, piano based rock and roll, up tempo. You're adding to the playlist, isn't it? What a pro.
yeah. For anyone, yeah.
What a pro.
As I said, any song we mentioned, they'll be in there.
Yeah, I love those songs. Like, anything that he writes that you can dance to is great. But also he's got this ability to write melodic structures and vocal lines and stuff. And he's really good with the ballads, which is tricky to have too many slow songs in an album. Even if you're a singer, songwriter, or whatever you want to call it, it's not like the safest thing to do is to do a whole kind of introspective album, but he did it so well. I mean, I didn't know much about this album, to be honest with you, and probably there's a reason why he named it Elton John, because I think he wasn't happy with the first one. He doesn't like it. Very rarely plays anything from the first album. I think it was like, okay, let's start again. This album is Elton John. So.
Well, talking about starting, let's move on to the next point. And the start of this is quite a statement to start your second album, but we've already discussed this. His what we consider to be his first. That's actually his musical personality imprinted on an album. Start your first album with a slow piano-only ballad like Your Song, which is probably one of the most iconic ballads in pop history. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, for sure. And it's funny because I always thought of this song as something really cheesy, radio friendly.
I'm so glad
that song. Come on, like that's probably his worst song ever. And then I listened to it. It's like, actually, it's pretty good.
I'm really glad you said that, because, like I said, my overall attitude to Elton John is, not for me, brilliant, but not for me. Half of that has been done because of Your Song, and that is because that we went through a stage about 10 years ago in the UK where we had this, it was almost a resurgence of this singer-songwriter thing where it was just a piano and a vocalist. We had people like Ellie Goulding. She's one of those that I can pin this on, and she covered this song, and I know it's all right. When someone says they don't like Elton John, I have to make an excuse and I have to justify it, because this is called Long Live Rock and Roll. With Ellie Goulding, I can just say I hate her voice. So it's just also breathy, and it's just like, and you can buy a house where we both can live. And I was like, no, thank you. I hope you don't mind. Like, no, thank you. And so because of that got radio played to absolute hell, Felipe, in the UK. I mean, you were here 10 years ago, so maybe you were listening to the radio as well. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I remember this song being on the radio.
Oh my God. And it really put me off it. So even when Elton's
maybe that was not consciously the reason why I didn't like this song.
Well, maybe
until last night.
Damn them.
So I've listened to it again. It was like, wow.
But going back and listening to it, it is iconic. The emotive lyrics coupled with the really fluid piano is just masterful, because the piano shifts up and down in dynamics as well, doesn't it? There's some moments where you can tell he's playing a lot of notes, and then he's just back on the chords with the with the tiny sort of slower melody in the right hand.
It's Bernie claims that Elton wrote the song in 10 minutes. Elton says was in 20. That's fine. Anyway, that was quick.
20 minutes.
I have an interesting quote from Elton John about this song. It says, "I remember writing it at my parents' apartment in North London, and Bernie giving me the lyrics, sitting down at the piano and looking at it and going, oh my God, this is such a great lyric. I can't fuck this up." So,
what lyric?
The lyrics for your song.
Oh, all of them?
Yeah,
right, okay.
no, the lyrics for your song. So Bernie gave it to Elton. He sat at the piano to write the melody for it. He was like, this is too good. I can't fuck this up.
Oh, right. Okay.
Elton was like, this lyrics is so good. I can't do a shit melody for this. And he said in 20 minutes he had the melody, and he called Bernie, and he was like, yeah, that's great.
Here it is.
And think about this. Elton was 22. Bernie was 19. How can you be 19 years old and write such a profound lyric about love, about relationships, and everything he wrote? It's mind-blowing.
I agree.
It's insane.
Yeah, let's talk more about that with the lyrics and themes, because there's so many to get through. Anything else to say about your song? I mean, I don't feel like we've actually spent that long on it, but I feel like we've properly characterized how good it is.
Yeah, I think so. So I think it's the what I want to say about that is like they knew it would be the hit. That's kind of we know that in music, sometimes a band records an album. They're like, well, we don't know what's good. Maybe the label's going to take a pick. That's going to be the single. Maybe one of your friends are going to tell you this is your best song, whatever. But they knew from the start that the lyrics and the melody, the piano, the vocals, everything about that song was perfect. So that's why they showed that song first to the arranger, to the producer, to everyone, to convince them to be, part of the album. And I think everyone went on board because of that song first of all. And there was a really friendly environment apparently for the recording sessions, because everyone liked the music. So everyone liked what they were doing. So that is also kind of important, isn't it? You can be there just for the money, but you can be there because you believe you're producing great quality music. And this song was the starting point for everything.
And it sets the tone for the rest of the album, doesn't it? Sort of thematically, even the heavy use of the piano and the strings. It's kind of like, right, well, you want an idea of what's to come? Yeah, we're going to chuck in kind of a more upbeat country song. Yes, we're going to do a bit of gospel here and there. But ultimately, this is an introspective album that's going to look at, emotions, feelings, nostalgia, and we're going to draw on that for this album because this is what me and Bernie want to write about. So, excellent. It feels natural to go on to the lyrics and themes now, but I did just want to give a quick shout out, which we've already done, to the production. Again, for singer-songwriter records at this time, it was very unusual for such high-quality production to be put on. But then, again, like we said, Cat Stevens didn't really have a full orchestra behind him most of the time. James Taylor was kind of just one man and his guitar. Carole King, although she had a band with her, it was just her and her piano. But for Gus Dudgeon to do the job that he did, that filled really high production values, very polished, for 1970, man. You got to think this is a year after Led Zepp 1, which is a lovely
to give an idea,
audio,
to give an idea, when they went to the studio to record, they didn't have enough headphones for the whole orchestra. So they had to put a tiny speaker close to them so they could hear the music and record on top of it, which is like really, really tricky to do because everything can bleed into the microphones. And it's like, they recorded at Trident Studios. I lived for a couple of years, like just around the corner. So it's when I started reading about it, it's like, it's such a cool location in Soho. So it's this iconic recording studio, and they used to go to the Ship, which is a pub around the corner as well, where they were like, having a pint after the sessions, and then they would eat a curry around the corner. So they were like living this Soho lifestyle, and the whole band would hang out with the producer, everyone, and they would buy records of American music and go to the producer's house to listen to, so like. Wow. People like it's a cool thing to think about, like because when you have a singer-songwriter, as I said, it's not a band effort. It's not like they normally don't work as a team, but these guys were really a really solid team.
And you can tell in the album, everyone's done their job to the highest extent. It's brilliant. I mean, the lavish production style just sort of really gives it this emphatic grandeur that I think just sort of I think that's what sets this album apart from the likes of the other singer-songwriters of the time. And this is probably, you know, if you again, we keep forgetting that Empty Sky came before, but if we just forget the album existed,
about it.
It's
Elton
like,
doesn't like it.
It's like if this is what Elton's first, you know, quote unquote first album, he already had a leg up on all of the other singer-songwriters, didn't he? So as they were writing better and better albums, so was he. And he's going up and up and up because he started with such a high production value album. I think it's just done wonders for him, isn't it? Anyway, on to the lyrics and themes. Now, you're normally the lyrics guy. Is there anything you want to touch on first or sort of say?
Well, the lyrics are, there's a couple of songs that I found quite interesting in terms of lyrics. One of them is Border Song, which people interpret in a million different ways. Apparently, Bernie said, I'm going to call him by the first name all the time because I'm not quite sure how to pronounce his surname.
Taupin.
Anyway, Bernie, you're welcome to the show anytime. So Bernie said the lyrics were about Elton's distance from London's music scene. He wasn't part of that. He didn't feel like he was, he was alienated from that. He was a different kind of personality, maybe. So that's what he claims the song's all about, apparently, and but it can be interpreted about, acceptance in a way, like accepting everyone as they are, not judging people, not having prejudice. There's a lot of interpretations to that, and I think they're quite happy with the fact that people interpret the lyrics. One classic case of this in this album is Take Me to the Pilot, right? Some people say it's about a spiritual journey. Some people say it's about knowing someone for real, or trying to find what drives you, whatever. And Bernie said, like, the lyrics don't have any specific meaning. It was about words that sound good together, and he's happy for people to interpret them in any way. Nice. So, and I like that. So some of it, this is a story. I'm going to tell the story. There's no room for interpretation, and some of it is just completely open. I don't think he's a kind of lyricist that does the same thing every time. That's what really impresses me. Elton John could have worked with any songwriter in the world, any lyricist in the world. He picked this one partner and they worked together for an entire career. Think about this. You can write in partnership with anyone. You're the biggest star in pop music. But you said, you know what? This fella here, no one can write like him. I don't need anyone else. They managed to do that for decades, like, many consecutive platinum albums. And it's insane. So again, about lyrics, what's the one? The Great Discovery. I love that one. That's the one there's a bit of a mystery, but there's no interpretation. That's a story. That's proper storytelling. So it's a young boy who has a newborn brother, and his parents are about to tell him. What a story. What a beautiful story. The way they tell it, and it's only at the end that the boy understands what's going on in the house. But the thing is, as I said, the orchestra plus the melody and the lyrics all together makes you see the house through this boy's point of view. I imagine myself as that young boy running around the house looking for what's going on, what's this noise, and then you find out you have a brother. What a song!
It's so beautiful, isn't it? Really, I mean, there's quite a. Again, like I said at the start, there is a mix of there is a variation of whether we can call this a happy album or an emotional album or a sad album, because there's loads of I've kind of categorized it into 4 different categories, and the one you're talking about I've gone for is nostalgia and childhood, and I think another song that links into that is 60 Years On. First Episode at Heinton. That song's about revisiting childhood memories, and I look at that and I think, along with what you said, to write a full song about the birth of your brother was so beautiful. When you get to those final lyrics, when you realise, when you listen to the song for the first time and you realise, oh, it's his brother, it's his new baby brother. It's almost like the pennies dropped. It's like a twist in a movie. You're like, oh, I get it now. some of the other,
and it's a great discovery when you're a child.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
like it's amazing. It is.
There
a
are more of
great
us.
discovery. Yeah,
There's more children.
It's yeah.
A few of the others ones I've sort of categorized is I've got on the negative side, you've kind of got a bit of insecurity and self-discovery. Now, Elton John didn't come out as bisexual until 1976, so you have to think and you have to wonder. I should say, did he already know? I'm sure he did already know. And if you look at songs like "The Cage," which is literally about being caged, you know, symbolizing his personal struggles, maybe
So
him being
that means,
caged.
yeah, that means like Bernie had to know him really well to write something that he would sing
And make his own.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that is interesting. And on the other hand, every time he's singing about love, it's just, it applies to everyone. So I don't think there's that, you know, there's that. I don't think in a way his sexuality matters in terms of singing about love.
Yeah,
because everyone can relate to those feelings, you know, and people sometimes spend too much time talking about that, and I think yeah, it's the feeling that everyone understands, you know.
Yeah, a universal feeling.
Yeah.
We also got isolation and aging, which is a sort of another theme I sort of, you know, put some of these songs into. I need you to turn to, a plea, sort of a request for sort of emotional connectivity and stability. But most importantly, and you mentioned this earlier about their age, the song 60 Years On, which is just a haunting reflection on sort of aging, loneliness, you know. Listen to this lyric.
So write that at 19.
Yeah, crazy. Listen to this lyric. Who'll walk me down to the church when I'm 60 years old, when the ragged dog they gave me has been 10 years dead?
Wow.
20 years old, bro. These guys.
Yeah.
Writing songs and lyrics like that.
Yeah, it's
wow.
Yeah, exactly. So that's partially the reason why, like, people from every generation they like Elton, because when you listen to that, you could be 60 or 70 years old and listen to this young man playing the piano and singing and think, oh, I can relate to that.
Yeah.
And you can be a young person who just fell in love with someone and listen to your song and you think, oh, I can relate to that. So
listen to this one as well.
Very universal.
From the song First Episode at Heinton, and it kind of links to this writing lyrics that seem so much more mature than they were at their age. For when we were children, the games that we played and the lessons we learned from the old people's ways. It's just staggering, man. And I think, you know, obviously Elton wrote a lot of the, well, you know, most of the music, and it's stunning, but a massive credit has to go to Bernie Taupin for this.
Oh,
this
yeah.
album.
I'm a big fan of his lyrics. I think is I won't say he's an unsung hero of pop music, because people know who he is. He's just like a kind of a more private person, isn't it? He's not part of the world of celebrities, and it's really successful. So I think he achieved a lot. The thing, I'm a really big fan of his lyrics, and I don't think there's many people in the industry who can write that many quality songs as he can. So it's just like the amount of it is shocking. Like, you, even if you don't like this album, or for whatever reason you don't like a song in the album, there's no way you can say that the lyrics were not great all the way. You know, probably one of the best things in the album, lyrics.
And that is quite different to what we've said about most of the albums we've done over these last 98 episodes.
Oh yeah,
isn't it? Where the lyrics are arguably the standout. Elton has turned the lyrics into something truly, truly beautiful. Memorable songs that have become, you know, your song has become a state. Everyone knows your song. But to take Bernie's lyrics and excel them to that extent, God, just great work from both of them.
Yeah.
Well done, guys. Well done. You've done a good album. Well done. But yeah, brilliant stuff. Brilliant stuff. Anything else lyrically or thematically?
I don't know. I think I spoke about everything I wanted to. Let me see if I have notes. You know, I can't trust my memory. Got to check my notes. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I think I said everything I
Cool.
wanted to say about the lyrics.
I'll quickly finish. We'll talk about the legacy and the impact of the album before your monologue. So actually, as we told you in the last few episodes, whoever chooses the album to do the episode for, they normally do the monologue. However, I chose this album this week, but I know Felipe and his wife absolutely love Elton John, so I've let Felipe have this one.
Good excuse to not do it, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's like
slacker.
No,
Bloody
yeah,
slacker.
just because you're doing all the behind the scenes work and working hours and hours for the podcast doesn't mean you can get away with not writing
me,
the monologue.
The monologue is the least of my worries when it comes to organising this podcast. Anyway, but the legacy and the impact of this album, I mean, I don't think the album as itself stands as one of those albums that everyone says, oh, you have to have this. It's not like Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, which I haven't actually heard, but I know that's a famous one of his. It's not like Sergeant Pepper. It's not like Pet Sounds. But Your Song, as we already said, was his first big hit. It reached number 8 on the Billboard in the US, number 7 in the UK. The whole album reached number 4 on the Billboard 200. And what it did, especially in the USA, was it introduced Elton John to the world, but mainly the USA, and that's where his global notoriety and superstardom took off, because
and then he started playing stadium gigs like the one
yes,
in the picture on my background here.
In 1970, August, so a few months after this had released, he had his debut US performance at the Troubadour, and this just cemented what the American audience. Well, actually, no, I was going to say it cemented what the audiences thought of him, but it's not true. He came over, and they were expecting this balladeer to sing and be at his piano and be all emotive and very dark, but they completely shocked by his flamboyance, his dynamism, his stage presence. It just shocked these audiences. And this is when the USA was introduced to Elton John, and they were like, "Holy shit, what have we got here?"
What the hell's
you got Elton John turning up in all his costumes, his flamboyancy, and his god.
Oh, there's something I found. He said something about his visual style, and it's basically what he said. He said, I wasn't a sex symbol like Bowie, Mark Bolan, or Freddie Mercury, so I dressed more on the humorous side, because if I was going to be stuck at the piano for 2 hours, I was going to make people look at me. That is a really cool point, because I'm not the sexy pop singer, I can't be the new Freddie Mercury.
Freddie, yeah.
But I especially because Freddie was walking around the stage, and had all that kind of a really strong visual performance, and Elton had to compensate by the fact he's like tied to the piano for the whole gig. He had to compensate by looking like not shocking, I would say, but like flamboyant, as you said.
To keep your eye on the man and the piano, because it's not easy to sit there for 2 hours and watch the man whose name is on the headline poster, to sit there and watch him sit there, just at a piano for 2 hours.
But again, that proves that he is a true musician. He could just hire someone to play the piano at the gig and be, like a front man. But he is a musician. He's got to be there playing the piano. So that is his thing. I saw him live. His last
You saw him a year ago? Yeah, wait, the last ever gig in the UK?
In London, or maybe the UK as well.
His last tour. Gig, you were there.
Then he went to, I think he went off to America to finish the tour. But
wow, how was it?
The O2 Arena, 22,000 people, something like that. And it really amazed me how good he was with the band and jamming on stage with people. And just like they improvise a lot live. It's super cool. Again, true musician. His piano solos were great. Everything he did, and he seemed to enjoy the performance quite a lot. He was happy and was really thankful to the audience for the whole career, for everything. And I find him a great live act. He's just unbeatable.
Well, I actually just quickly googled the set list for the night you were there, and 23 songs.
Long. Yeah, and some of them had some long instrumental sections with the whole band jamming. Phenomenal stuff, man. Really,
it's iconic, man. I mean, I said what I said about him, and like I said, I'd never choose to put him on, but I can completely appreciate him as an artist and a musician. But I'm looking through this set list, and there are some songs undeniably that I say, oh yeah, of course I love that one. I guess that's why they call it the blues. Stunning. Yeah. Rocket Man's a great one. Tiny Dancer, you can't help but sing along. Yeah. Someone Saved My Life Tonight, iconic. Crocodile Rock, of course, had that chorus. How can you not
Yeah,
sing along? Wow.
yeah,
Gotta
it's
do,
great.
gotta
It's a
do.
great.
And
It's
do you know what? Like I said, although this is not my kind of music, I'm really excited to do the next ones because just the orchestration alone has kept me
yeah,
interested and being like,
yeah,
wow, I want to hear where they go with this. And you're telling me this is the first one where Bernie and him put their heart and soul into an album. God, I
yeah,
can't wait to hear the second, third, fourth, fifth
yeah.
one. So we're definitely going to be doing more Elton in the future.
Oh, we
So
have to,
all
man. We
good,
have
all
to.
good. Do you want to finish us off with your
Yes,
monologue?
yes, sir. Um,
Before you do that, I will just do the terms and conditions to the listeners whilst you prepare. Guys, if you are listening to us on Apple or Spotify, we would ask a massive favour that you go down and give us a review. You hit the 5 stars, you write us a little sentence, and each review that we get, whether it's positive, we get thrown up the charts and more people get to see us and we get recommended to more people, which means we get bigger audiences and we do more shows and this, that and the other. So it takes 20 seconds of your time, but means the world to us. So if you do that, that'd be appreciated. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you hit like and subscribe so that you stay up to date with our new content and our new episodes. So Felipe, take it away.
so yeah, I hope you guys don't mind that I put down words what I think about this album. Um,
I'm really hoping now the rest of your monologue is just puns of lyrics.
no, I wish.
That was brilliant. Well done.
Here we go.
Well done.
Elton John, released in 1970, was the second album by the man we all know as one of the most creative and prolific artists in the history of pop music. But things were quite different for him at the time. Elton's first album wasn't a hit, and he needed to come up with a game-changing record to reach the success he was looking for. After writing with Bernie Taupin for a few years, they had established a solid partnership and were capable of finding the perfect blend of lyrics and melodies for every song. This time they had a much better plan and a bigger team. Some of the finest musicians were hired to contribute to the album, and producer Gus Dudgeon was put in charge of what was intended to be an epic orchestral pop album. With some songs based on the funky beat of the band and others completely dominated by classical instruments, the album sounded more diverse and ambitious than any other material produced by pop or rock artists at the time. But all of that started with the most important thing in music: great melodies and lyrics. Bernie and Elton's demos for this album have impressed every single person involved in the recording, and they all knew the result would be fantastic. The very first track in the album has changed Elton John's life and career forever. Your Song is the perfect pop ballad with emotional lyrics describing young man's love with sincerity and a little bit of self-doubt. Combined with the strong vocal delivery, it sounds real and relatable, and it was the ideal piece of music to show the whole world what Elton and Bernie were capable of. Elton John's second album was an international hit. Your Song was played by every radio station across the globe, and that young and extremely talented piano player from England has become the biggest star in the world.
As you can see from the photo behind Felipe,
Yeah.
if you're watching on YouTube. Or thousands, hundreds and thousands of people sitting there watching a man play his piano.
Yeah.
That's how
Young,
much his music has
talented,
touched
yeah.
people.
Yeah,
That's how much one piano and one set of lyrics can do.
Yeah.
Incredible, incredible. Thank you for that, bro. Very well spoken, very well said.
Yeah.
I tried to work in, I was trying to think of working in a pun, like, do you know how wonderful life is when people play monologues? But yours was too good. I wasn't going to try and compete. But yeah, anyway.
Yeah.
Anything else to say?
Oh, no, just listen to the album. You know, buy the record, put it on the record player, listen to it.
Check out the final 3. So do you know what? I will add them to the playlist. The 3 extra songs from the deluxe edition. They're called Big Bad Moon Rising?
No. Oh man, you went too far from the actual title.
Oh god.
The Bad Side of the Moon.
Where was I thinking? I was going Creedence Clearwater Revival, wouldn't I? Bad Side of the Moon, Grey Seal, and Rock and Roll Madonna. They're in the playlist now. They're great songs, and like I said to you, I just don't think they necessarily fit in with how the album sounded as a whole. But yeah, they're great songs. As Felipe said, listen to the album. But yeah. Cool. Well, thank you for joining us for another episode of the Long Live Rock and Roll podcast. As I said, please like and subscribe and review us. It would do the world of good for us. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, give us your comments, your thumbs up. Tell us how much you hate us or love us, or you like or dislike the episode. It doesn't matter. It's all about engagement, isn't it? So just say something. Give us the stars and all that stuff. And yeah, thanks for being with us once again. Keep on rocking, everyone, and don't do anything I wouldn't do.
As usual, guys, take care and long live rock and roll.